Hi, my name is Michael Heaton, and I'll be the first presenter in this video. My two other team members, Riley and Kiefer, will be coming on shortly. So for our capstone project, we have been working on an application called Feather, whose purpose it is to automate property inspections. We've been working in conjunction to two other teams who are also working under Michael Reeves, our project manager. And the application has three versions: a web app and two mobile apps, one for the iOS and another for Android. Riley has been doing touch-ups on the iOS app for most of the semester, and the rest of us have been working on the Android app, which is still a work in progress. So that'll take us into next semester mostly. We'll be finishing up the Android app going into next semester. Currently, property inspections are done using pen and paper. The inspector typically travels to the property, fills out some kind of packet detailing the condition of that property and any work that needs to be done. The vendors to repair the property would then need to be contacted manually, and Feather's purpose is to automate this process. The target demographic for our application are property management companies. These may be something like an apartment complex or a company that an individual home renter would contract with. The purpose of a inspection report is basically to document the current condition of the property. The inspector will travel from room to room, noting the conditions in each room. They'll look at things like air ducts, pipes underneath the sink. If something like a pipe is broken, then that's going to be noted in the report. Or perhaps the former tenant of the property punched a hole in the wall or something, and in that case that'll be documented in the report and need to be repaired by some kind of repair vendor. And what Feather does is it takes all of this information, it allows the user to enter it into the phone, and then automatically generates a PDF of the report. So physically writing the report on some kind of clipboard is then eliminated. The app also sends an email to all the repair vendors who then come to the property and schedule whatever repairs are needed. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kiefer.
Hi, I'm Kiefer Cover, and I'm going to be telling you about our app's requirements, starting with performance. So as a property inspection app, our core user base is going to be very large property inspection or property management companies. And these companies can have thousands of properties in their names, which means that we're going to be dealing with tons of data. And if we want users to be happy with our app and not get them frustrated by long waiting times, then we need to make sure that we move this data efficiently to and from the database, and where it's possible, even cut out time-consuming calls to the database. Next up is security. Not too much damage can be done with somebody just seeing a property inspection form that's been filled out. However, if someone were to get a hold of a password that one of our users has, and they got into their account and started deleting inspection forms, then we could run into a lot of trouble later on down the line if, say, somebody takes the property management company to court and the company no longer has the files that they need, then our app is going to get dropped pretty quickly. Moving on to the next requirement. This one's kind of obvious. Our users need to be able to add a new property. They're going to be, users are going to be constantly like adding new properties that they need to manage and adding new forms along with that. We also want to make sure that the addition of new properties into the app is simple and straightforward, so the user doesn't have to input all these tiny little details at first. They can put in whatever information that they deem is necessary at the moment and go back and adjust details later on. Our fourth requirement is the user needs to be able to perform an inspection. This is really the core of our application. The user needs to be able to quickly and easily fill out an inspection form. This is like the whole draw of the app. Users no longer have to use like a pen and paper. If they make a mistake, they can go back. They don't have to get like a new paper. Their inspection is stored on the database and can be kept for years. And if it needs to be brought back, then they can just visit the database. They don't have to go through a huge room looking through a ton of files. Our fifth requirement, the user needs to be able to email vendor reports. So here's a way that we save our users a ton of time. So typically after a property inspection, the property manager would have to go home, they take their piece of paper, they look at whatever damages have been done to the building, and they send out an email to these individual contractors like plumbers, electricians, etc. And they have to send an email to each one individually and type that out themselves. But with our app, after an inspection form has been filled out, email is automatically generated for each vendor type. So at the press of a button, the user can send an email to the plumber, the electrician, whoever they need, all at once. Our next requirement is a local storage option. Our project manager thinks that it would be best if we could store large files on the phone temporarily, so that once users can connect to a Wi-Fi source, then they can upload whatever files to the database, because we don't want to just upload files when the user is using their data and then they have some kind of overage and get charged this huge fee because we were using data when we shouldn't be. And we really don't want our customers to be frustrated with us. Next up, we have installation. For the computer, you have the web application. No installation needed. You just visit it like a normal website. Really easy to use. The mobile applications are just simple web applications that would be stored in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. You've downloaded tons of them before, I'm sure. It's really easy. And our final requirement is monitorability. So our system administrator, so at a company you have the employees and then you have some manager that's overseeing all the things that the employees do. This manager needs to be able to view all of the properties that their employees are overseeing, and they need to be able to view their inspections and view their progress on inspections. So they need to be able to see what their employees are doing as they do it. And obviously this can get pretty crazy. We're not going to throw like all of the information at them at once. we're going to abstract this information maybe by employee to make it nice and simple for the user. That's our final requirement. I'm now going to send it over to Riley, who's going to tell you about all we've accomplished so far this semester.
Hey there, my name is Riley Cohn, and I'm going to be talking more in depth about how we met our requirements that Kiefer previously spoke of. So we're going to go ahead and get started with requirement number 1, which was performance. So we'll start off. I personally worked on the iOS application, and we wrote all the code for the iOS application using Apple's Xcode, so that we could leverage the high-powered functions that Apple provides us to develop a native mobile application for iOS devices. So by adhering to Apple's standards for their performance using Xcode for their native applications, our code is extremely fast and is very efficient running all the code that we have written. For the Android application, Kiefer and Michael's team have been following the Google standard very closely for Android development. They lay out very strict guidelines to follow if you want the highest performing app as possible. So we did follow those guidelines, so our Android application will have the highest performance that we possibly can. Requirement number 2 was the security. So for iOS, Apple is extremely strict when it comes to privacy and security issues when validating their applications to go onto the App Store. So we must follow these Apple guidelines extremely cautiously and make sure that we implement all their security functions in order to be accepted into the Apple App Store when the time does come. So much like the performance issues for Android, we are also following the Google standards for security extremely close. And we are ensuring that Feather is extremely safe for its users and that we're not storing plain text passwords. Everything's being hashed when we go to the database. We have very secure connections. We are following all the standards as closely as possible as to maintain a secure environment for our users. Requirement number 3. So if you remember, requirement number 3 was to allow users to add a new property from the mobile app. So here's a screenshot from the iOS application right here on the left. So you can see that we make the users provide the basic information such as the address, city, state, and zip code, as well as optional information such as the tenant name, phone number, email, as well as the owner name, phone number, and email. So we do not want to bog down the user with entering too much information because that'll be tiresome, and we want to make this an easy process for the user. So we don't make them enter bed, bath, square footage, information such as that on the initial add property page, but they are able to add that later on if they so do choose. For the Android app, they're not quite at the same stage as the iOS app, but you see here in the bottom right the plus sign that is standard for Android applications, and that plus sign will lead the Android users to a similar page as the iOS app and will be implemented very soon into the fall semester so that users will be able to add properties. Requirement number 4 was allow users to perform an inspection directly on the application. So this is the whole purpose of Feather, was to make property inspections much more user-friendly and very easy to use, which I feel like we meet that requirement extremely well. So we'll go ahead and walk through the screenshots real quick. So over here on the left, we have the first page they see when they click on an inspection. So it breaks down into the list of rooms in the house. So we have the living room, family room, kitchen, dining room, and bedrooms, etc. So let's say we go ahead and click on living room. You want to look at the living room and inspect that. So we go over here to this page, and it has a list of all the items. It also allows you to add items and also add rooms. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So here are the items that are in the living room. And if we want to add a new thing, such as a table, for example, we can click this and type in the new item name, and it will appear in this table. So let's say the flooring needs to be fixed. So we add a little comment button here. When you click that, it brings you to the page over here. And when you add a comment for something that needs to be fixed, it allows you to upload photos from the library or take new pictures. You can add a comment to that item to make sure we want to make sure that the floor boards get fixed because one is broken. And you can also choose the category, which will be more important on the next slide. So just keep that in mind, that each item, when you need fixing, has a certain category it falls under, such as carpenter in this case. And that's useful for creating the vendor reports, which I will now talk about. So the iOS application currently automatically generates vendor reports for each vendor category that was chosen during an inspection. So you remember on this page, here's a list of all the vendor categories that each user has their own list of vendor categories. So this current logged in user has categories such as the AC, carpenter, handyman, landscaper, etc. So for each one that is chosen during a comment page, we'll automatically generate a vendor report. So this is what a vendor report looks like. It has all the rooms and the items that were chosen that need fixing, as well as their comments and photos. And this process is normally manually done by the inspector themselves when they get back to the office. And our application automatically does it and allows you to automatically email them to all the vendors that you have saved in your application. We allow users to save phone numbers and emails of all vendors, which allows for easy contacting and emailing of these vendor reports. So we save users very much time they would normally spend doing these vendor reports. We do it all for them. It's all manually done or automatically done by the app. It saves them a lot of time, so I think we meet that requirement very well. So an optional requirement here we had, not really optional, but a lower priority, that each of iOS and Android have their own types of persistent storage, such that we want to store users' data for like adding a new property or any other function, and then when the data connects to the Wi-Fi, then sync it to the database rather than sending up photos and data on their phone's data plan, because that could get costly if they do not have an unlimited data plan. So this is a low priority right now, but it will be a future requirement that we will meet in the next semester after all the core functions are done. This is an added bonus for users. Requirement number 7 was to make installation as easy as possible for our users. So we have the web app over here, and so for the web app, they don't have to download or install anything. It's all through any modern browser. They can view the web app, and they can view all their inspections and reports and whatnot through the web app without installing a single thing. And we have our mobile applications that we've been working on. So for the Android app, they'll be able to install it from the Google Play Store, and for iOS, the Apple App Store. And users know how to do this using their mobile devices. They do it for all kinds of apps, so it'll be a super simple installation process as the requirement has stated. So for requirement 8, which is monitorability, by monitorability I mean that admin accounts should be able to monitor their subordinates' accounts, such as their properties and inspections, and that requirement is built straight into our database. If an admin logs in to Feather, they will automatically be able to view their subordinates' properties and inspections straight on the application. So that app requirement has been met already. So here's the old iOS application timeline. So by March 14th, we were hoping to have all core functions and pages complete. By March 28th, we wanted all the database connections complete and pulling real data into the application. At that time, we had dummy data being used just as arrays at runtime. And by the end of the semester, at April 11th, we hoped to have the app fully complete and on the Apple App Store. But as software development goes, that's not what happened. Our sponsor was overconfident in our abilities, I suppose, but we did not get that far, obviously. We still have a lot of database work to do, as the database team that he has working right now, a different capstone team, is graduating. So that work is going to be pushed on to us. We're going to have to finish working on that, as well as PHP pages for the web app. And then the app needs to be debugged and ready to hit the store in December is our goal. So for Android, we've completed the burger menu, which is that little 3-bar menu you see on top where you click and the page slides out. That's complete. We have login user data being verified against the database. The app is connected to the database. The pages are all linked together, although all the internal logic isn't complete. All the pages do exist. And inspections, properties, and vendors are being pulled and pushed to the database using the same PHP files that the iOS app is using, so that was very easy for them to implement and has been done. These are the same requirements I think I just spoke about. We have the add new property requirement has been met, perform inspection property has been met, as well as the local storage option and performance options have been met on the Android application, as well as iOS. So for future work for the Android, we need to make it look more like the iOS app. Like Google and iOS have different standards, but we want the core layouts to look very similar for cross-platform teams. And we have to finish all the database connections and debug and test. So here's the old application timeline, which was the same as the iOS, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We were hoping to have it complete and released by the end of the semester. That's what our sponsor was hoping. We never thought that was going to be possible. So for the next semester, we are going to work on the Android application and finish polishing that up. And we hope to have it pushed and live in the Google Play Store in December at the same time the iOS app is. And that's it for Feather. Thank you for watching.